Abbiamo in linea prossimo ospite di oggi che ho pronunciato, Vivienne Borrillo. Buon pomeriggio Vivienne, grazie di essere venuto su Radio Italia 1 Adelaide.
Buon pomeriggio, grazie per questa opportunità.
Allora, come ho spiegato, Vivienne ha ottenuto il punteggio più alto in South Australia per l'italiano nel SACE, nel Yr12 del 2023. Quindi complimenti di nuovo per questo bel risultato. E quindi lei ha ottenuto anche il premio che il Comite sta dando ogni anno a chi riceve questo punteggio. Quindi auguri di nuovo.
Grazie.
Adesso facciamo un po' in italiano, magari anche un po' in inglese. Spiegaci, come mai, perché hai scelto di fare l'italiano negli anni 11 e 12? Perché credo che dopo il 10° anno bisogna fare delle decisioni importanti, vero?
No, ho scelto di studiare italiano nell'anno 7
Ok.
nella mia scuola. Sì. E ho scelto di fare italiano perché tutta la mia famiglia è italiana e ho voluto comunicare meglio con i miei parenti nella loro madrelingua. Ho anche scelto di studiare italiano perché credo che sia una lingua molto bella e musicale. È molto piacevole all'orecchio, perché è una lingua latina.
Sì, poetica anche un po'. E diciamo la scuola
Sì,
dove hai fatto questi studi è Loreto College, lì a Marriottville, vero?
sì,
E ho notato sul post, come hai menzionato anche i tuoi insegnanti, un paio di insegnanti di italiano. Tu hai deciso di fare l'italiano, già hai detto dal Year 7, sono
sì.
molti, pochi gli studenti che prendono questa decisione?
Sì. Sono pochi gli studenti di italiano a Loreto. L'anno scorso ho studiato in un gruppo di 5.
Mhm.
Credo che questa era perché italiano ha una reputazione di essere difficile o non utile in futuro. Sono d'accordo che italiana è molto difficile a volte, in particolare odiavo imparare il congiuntivo.
I verbi, sì.
Però Eh, però, nonostante i miei sforzi, studiare l'italiano è stato molto gratificante perché mi ha dato un apprezzamento più profondo per la tradizione della mia famiglia.
Mhm.
In particolare, la mia tradizione preferita è la giornata dei pomodori, in cui tutta la mia famiglia, sì, tutta la mia famiglia lavoriamo insieme per preparare un sugo delizioso. E poi, dopo tutto il nostro duro lavoro, mangiamo un grande pasto di spaghetti napoletano fresco insieme.
Sì. E allora, di dove viene la famiglia dei Borrillo?
Ah, sì, i miei nonni vengono dappertutto in Italia, incluso Lazio, Campania e Puglia.
Ah, ok. Quindi
Sì.
un bel misto. E forse alcuni si sono incontrati qui in Australia. Ok, so sei stata in Italia? Have you visited yourself?
No, I've never visited. Ho voluto fare un scambio scolastico in Italia nell'anno 10°, ma purtroppo non era possibile con coronavirus.
Sì, Covid, sì.
Però, sì, però non scoraggio. Ho deciso che all'università prenderò ogni opportunità di finalmente partecipare in un scambio culturale in Italia.
Bello, vediamo anche come possiamo cercare di aiutarlo. Anche questo potrebbe essere anche un piccolo progetto che il Comites potrebbe prendersi, a cui potrebbe contribuire in un modo o in un altro. Ok, quindi se dicevi che erano pochi gli studenti, forse perché si pensa che l'italiano è difficile, cosa si potrebbe fare per incoraggiare più persone? Che hai detto anche si pensa che la lingua non è importante, non ha un aspetto pratico nella vita, mentre invece anche nel campo del business, io insegno international business e
Mm.
la cosa principale quando si va a fare il commercio con un paese estero è di capire la cultura del mercato dove si va. E questo si fa molto
Yeah.
bene attraverso la lingua.
Mm. I definitely agree
Yes.
with that. I think that studying Italian gave me such a great understanding of the culture. Especially this year, I did a lot of things, like used a lot of strategies to try to improve my understanding, not only of the culture, but also like my comprehension and my ability to kind of quickly write out or speak large chunks of Italian, because obviously when you're in an exam under time constraints, you can't really afford to stop and think for a couple of minutes. So I did a lot of things, like I would read magazines and books in Italian, which gives you not only like insight into the language, but also the culture, because you see in magazines, there's a lot of articles about family or about cooking, which kind of, I think, ties in with my understanding of the Italian culture. I also listen to a lot of Italian music.
Okay.
And for my languages week at my school, my friends and I actually played an Italian song together, which was fun because we were all from different language subjects. So one of my friends was studying Chinese, but we all kind of tried to learn the lyrics together, and that was a really fun way to kind of get more involved with the language. And that was the song that I asked you to play, Come un pittore.
Come on, Victoria. Okay. We'll play it a bit later. Well, actually, you've just reminded me.
Yeah,
I've heard of this band Måneskin that apparently has now become a world phenomenon, and
yeah,
even some of my second cousins have gone to see them here in Adelaide, although they have pretty much no Italian. Well, they certainly don't speak Italian, but that's
yeah.
an interesting way to cut across cultures through the music.
Yeah, it's really, I think, brought Italian music to kind of the top of people's minds. Actually, in my oral, the moderators asked me if I'd been able to get tickets to Måneskin, and I actually hadn't, because none of my friends wanted to go with me. But
Uh,
we do all really love Måneskin. Yeah.
let's stick with that for a second. What's so good about this band? Why? Apparently, they're the only rock band in the world.
Um, I think they kind of have a very distinctive Italian style, because during when I was studying for exams, I listened to a lot of Italian music, and there were definitely a lot of messages coming through in their music that's echoed by a lot of other Italian artists. I think they kind of came into the mainstream because of Eurovision. That kind of gave them a really great platform for people to get to know them. And they're just kind of this band that has a Western format of music, like they're playing rock, which a lot of people know very well, but bringing this distinctive Italian style to it that kind of makes it so unique. It makes people so invested, I think.
And I think they like the slightly rebellious background. When they first won,
Yeah.
I think in Sanremo, they won with a song that was dedicated to their teachers, who always used to complain and say you would never amount to anything. And they said, "Well, there you go, we showed you." Okay.
Mm.
So Vivienne, we were talking about maybe what can we think about? What could we do to encourage the uptake of languages, Italian in particular, but languages in high school?
I think the main thing is just changing the way that students look at the subject and what they're hoping to get out of it. Because I feel, in general, the mentality is that languages are too difficult to pick up in Year 12 for the payoff that they offer. Because in the SACE, they don't scale as well compared to more scientific subjects.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of students just feel that it doesn't fit in with their plans for their future or for their career. Because I think a lot of people, you hear second language and you think, oh, okay, I'll become a translator or something like that. There's a very narrow understanding of what learning a second language can do for you. Yeah. But I disagree with this mentality. I think it's kind of limiting to think of it that way. And I also think there's lots of strategies which can be used to make languages in general, but especially Italian, a more manageable subject in Year 12.
Oh, okay. Like what? Manageable. Okay. That's interesting.
Well, one thing that I did was I watched shows and movies in Italian with English subtitles, which
Yeah.
was pretty enjoyable because all of their movies are really like very energetic. It's a very kind of slapstick, I found, culture. Like the way that they come off in films and shows is like a lot of humor. So that was really fun to watch. And that gave me a good understanding of the Italian culture and especially youth culture. I watched a show on Netflix called Baby that was actually really popular in Italy a couple of years ago. And that was brilliant because then that opened me up to the all these kind of like promotions that they'd done for the show. So there were articles about it in Italian that I could read. and there are also interviews done with the cast. And there was actually an interview that they did with the band you talked about before, Måneskin. That was really interesting because it was all Italian, but it was all like really engaging and a really great way to learn more about the language and the culture. And then another thing that I did was I watched English shows with Italian subtitles, which was really useful for me for exams, because when you're going along and you're trying to write like a big, like an essay question or something like that, 300 words on a prompt, it can be really damaging if you have to stop and think about a certain word to say. In the exam, you get given a dictionary, but the dictionary doesn't have like phrases or colloquialisms, and it takes about 3 or 4 minutes just to flick through and find this word, which is just like time you can't afford to lose in an exam. So watching these English shows with Italian subtitles kind of like it gave me an idea of how to substitute things that wouldn't translate directly into Italian, and kind of get a good understanding into colloquialisms and the language. So for example, like if you were to say it's a catch-22 in English, that might become è un cane che si morde la coda or something like that in Italian. And that was great. Yeah, and that's great to have up your sleeve, especially for SACE, because they do like to see colloquialisms and not just stuff that can come from a dictionary. They like to know that you can, you have kind of a handle on the culture and can speak more informally.
Yes. Okay. Well, that's interesting. And you need quite a good mental agility to be doing that. Because I know I sometimes observe when I'm reading the subtitles in English, they don't correspond all that well to Italian, but they convey the message, which is usually what's more important. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Some good techniques.
A great way to come.
So maybe you can feed that back into the system to your teachers, and we'll talk about that too in Comites. So what's next for you? You finished year 12. Have you?
And we had our first offer round yesterday for offers to get into university, and I got into my first preference, which was really great.
Oh, cool.
So this year I'm studying, law and arts at the University of Adelaide.
Oh, bravo, complimenti. Yeah. So you'll be doing, what is that, a law degree and an arts degree, or?
Yes, together. They're offered as like a combined course at the University of Adelaide, so shorter amount of time for the 2 degrees.
And do you think it's, talking about practicalities and professions, can you combine the law and languages?
I think it's definitely something that I'm very interested in. I'm still kind of trying to figure out what I'm hoping to major in the arts degree, because languages is an option, but it has to be studied at the Flinders campus, because I don't think it's offered within the University of Adelaide itself. It has to be taken externally.
It's taught by Flinders staff, but at least in the past, they used to go down to the Adelaide campus.
Yeah, I think recently they stopped doing that. Okay. Now you have to do it at Flinders, and then you get the credit converted to credit for your degree. Yeah.
And well, as you said that, I remembered during the interviews around the Voice campaign referendum, I interviewed a lady in Sydney who was a lawyer, and she'd worked in a legal study in Milano, and was back in Australia. And so we were talking in Italian about these legal concepts, and she'd certainly moved with her legal studies across cultures. And she ended up saying it was due to her mother in particular, who was an Italian teacher, who'd instilled the language in her. So that allowed some international mobility, which would have been much more difficult if you only had the one language.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I told you we've got a journalist here, and who's has done some interesting work. She come across a linguistics professor who's reviving an Aboriginal language up in the northern parts of South Australia, the Bangala. And she's interested in Italian Aboriginals and seeing how they combine things. It might even be interesting to get some Italian Aboriginal dictionaries happening across the various languages. Bene, allora, so you mentioned a song. Do we have a song that you would like to play and explain to us why? What's so special about this song?
Okay, should I explain in Italian maybe?
Come vuoi.
Faccio parte di un gruppo musicale con i miei amici. L'anno scorso, durante la settimana delle lingue alla nostra scuola, abbiamo suonato una canzone che si chiama Come un pittore, dal film Bianca come il latte, rossa come il sangue.
Oh, wow. Allora, spiegami un po', io questo film non lo conosco. Bianca come il latte mi ha fatto pensare a Tintarella di Luna, però forse... cos'è questo film? Spiegami un po'.
Sì, questo film si tratta di un adolescente Leo, si innamora di una ragazza che si chiama Bea, ma quando lui scopre che Bea sta morendo dalla leucemia, decide di donare il suo midollo seo a lei.
Ah, ok.
Sì, è
Ok.
un film molto bello, ma anche tristissimo. Ho pianto in classe quando l'abbiamo visto, che era un po' imbarazzante.
Sì. E allora poi spiegami questa cosa. Fai parte di un gruppo musicale. Cosa fai? Canti, suoni...
Sì, sì,
Canti?
sono la cantante del gruppo musicale e suoniamo soprattutto il rock da gruppo musicale come Måneskin,
Ah,
Begin, per esempio, e anche Smells Like Teen Spirit, Nirvana, sì,
ah, oh, excellent. Ah, wow. E canzoni in italiano pure?
sì,
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 ottimo. Ok, allora adesso mandiamo in onda come un pittore con il Modà e featured questo nome che ancora non riesco, non ho imparato, De Palo. Giarebe De Palo. Ok, e grazie di nuovo Vivienne per essere venuto su Radio Italia 1 Adelaide. Ecco, come un pittore e ringrazio Vivian per avermi così messo a conoscenza della canzone e del film, della storia del film. Quindi di
sì.
nuovo complimenti per il risultato in italiano, complimenti per essere stato accettato a studiare legge all'Università di Adelaide and best wishes and thank you for coming on to Radio Italia 1.
Buon pomeriggio, ringrazio, questa era molto divertente. Ciao!
Ciao, ciao, grazie.